We spend so much of our lives trying to design the perfect plan, the perfect career, the perfect routine, the perfect future. But what if that very search for perfection is actually making us incredibly fragile? Today, we're going to dig into a totally different idea: how to build a life that doesn't just survive shocks and uncertainty, but actually gets stronger from them. And it all starts with a single moment, a moment on a playground that just went horribly wrong. This quote, it captures those heart-stopping seconds right before a disaster and the really hard-won wisdom that came out of it. It's a tough place to start, for sure, but a powerful one. So, that one moment, right there, it brings up the big question we're tackling in this whole explainer. It might seem like just a childhood accident, but trust me, hidden inside this one event is a deep lesson about risk, about intuition, and about the very structure of a life well lived. So to really get a handle on that big lesson, we've got to rewind and look at the little details of what happened that day on the playground.
So, what really went wrong here? Well, it was like this perfect storm of little things. You see, the father was tired, his focus was low, and he totally ignored that nagging gut feeling that something wasn't right. At the same time, his son, getting egged on by his friends, broke a simple rule he'd always followed: don't fall from a height above your head. On their own, these are just minor things, right? But together, they cooked up a catastrophe.
The result was what mountaineers have a word for: kaput. And look, this isn't just a mistake or some setback. It's a total system-breaking failure. Think a broken bone, a career-ending move, a ruined reputation. It's the kind of thing you just don't bounce back from easily. The whole point isn't to never make mistakes, but to make sure you avoid kaput. So, if our goal is to design a life that sidesteps those catastrophic failures, we need a whole new way of thinking. And that brings us to this incredibly powerful concept of antifragility, an idea really championed by the thinker Nassim Nicholas Taleb. Okay, so Taleb's whole framework basically breaks everything down into one of three buckets. You've got fragile things like a wine glass, which just shatter under stress. Then you've got robust things like a big rock that can take a hit and just stay the same. But that third category, anti-fragile, that's where the magic is. These are the systems that actually like stress. They benefit from randomness and disorder. Think about your immune system getting stronger after you fight off a cold. That's anti-fragility in action, and it's a total game changer. So how does this actually work? Well, the secret sauce is something called dose response. And this simple cookie analogy just makes it all click, right? The effect of something isn't linear. 1 or 2 cookies, delicious. But 20 cookies, you're gonna feel sick. The thing is the same, cookies, but the dose completely changes the outcome. All right, let's bring this right back to the playground, because this is where it all comes together. A small tumble from, say, your own height, that can actually be good for a kid. It teaches them a lesson, and the tiny physical shock can even make their bones stronger. That's a small, helpful dose of stress. But a fall from way up high, that's a catastrophic overdose. The risk doesn't scale in a nice, neat line. And that right there, that's nonlinearity. And honestly, it's the key to understanding how risk really works in the real world. And this idea of nonlinearity, it just completely blows up one of the biggest goals of modern life: optimization. It shows us there's a huge flaw in our constant chase for perfect. I mean, we're basically taught from day one to optimize everything: our productivity, our diet, our career. But here's the catch: when you optimize for just one single thing, you make the whole system incredibly fragile. You get rid of all the wiggle room, all the slack, all the backup plans. Yeah, you become super efficient, but you're also brittle. Just look at the tale of these two climbers. I mean, their stories are the perfect illustration of this danger. Both of them climbed the world's 14 highest peaks, an incredible feat. But Jerzy Kukuczka kept optimizing for that one thing, climbing harder and harder routes. And eventually, he pushed it too far. Kaput. Reinhold Messner, on the other hand, hit the goal and then he diversified. He went off to explore deserts, write books, build museums. He didn't optimize, he adapted. And he didn't just survive, he thrived. Okay, so if optimizing your life into a corner is a trap, what's the alternative? Well, instead of a rigid plan, we need a totally different mindset: exploring life's possibilities. The best way to think about this is a strategy that scientists call a leave-flight. Sounds complicated, but it's not. Imagine how animals look for food. They explore one little area with a bunch of small steps, really getting to know the place. But then, every once in a while, they take a big random leap into a totally new spot just to see what's out there.
In life, that means mastering what you're doing now, but also taking those occasional big leaps, launching that side project, moving to a new city, or trying out a radically different job.
Now, while we're out there exploring, we have to keep something in mind called path dependency. Basically, it's the idea that some choices you make early on can lock you into a path that's really, really hard to get off of later. Think about taking on a mountain of student debt for a career you're not even sure you want. That's a path with very high dependency. An anti-fragile life is all about making choices that keep your future options open.
Okay, this theory is all great, but how do we actually do this stuff? Let's get super practical and build out your anti-fragile toolkit.
First up, let's look backward for a second. It's easy to dismiss old traditions as, just old rules, but that's a huge mistake. Traditions that have stuck around for thousands of years aren't just quaint customs. They are time-tested survival guides. They're packed with the collective, distilled knowledge from countless lives spent navigating uncertainty. In a way, they're a cheat sheet for avoiding kaput.
Next, let's add some modern tools to the kit. First, something called via negativity. Stop focusing on what to add and start focusing on what to take away. Getting rid of bad habits or toxic debt is way more powerful than chasing some new perfect solution. Second, seek convexity. Make bets where your downside is small and you know what it is, but your potential upside is massive and unlimited. And third, experiment. Try that new career as a side hustle before you quit your job. Date someone for a while before you get married. Test everything in small doses.
And finally, with all this change and exploration, there are some things that should stay rock solid. The sources call them the eigenvectors of a good life, which is just a fancy way of saying they're the core pillars that keep you steady no matter what. Things like doing competent, creative work, spending real time with people you love, moving your body, and getting good sleep and good food. These are the non-negotiable foundations for your anti-fragile life.
So here's the thing. We started this whole journey with an accident, right? An imperfection that led to a broken bone. But look at all the wisdom that came out of it. It really forces you to ask this final big question that kind of flips everything on its head. What if we're all just chasing the wrong thing? What if the point isn't to build a perfect life free of bumps and bruises, but to build one that actually uses them as fuel to get even stronger?